true crime video today. It seems like a lot of you guys liked my last video I did on the Peterson case. I had a lot of fun researching it and filming and editing the video, so I'm here with another true crime case. This time it is the Golden State Killer case. I'm sure many of you guys have heard of the Golden State Killer. These crimes happened back like in the 1970s and 80s, but he was actually just caught last spring in 2018 by using DNA testing and genealogy, which is really cool that you can literally find criminals from how long ago and arrest them and link their DNA by using genealogy, which is like really popular now with like 23andMe and Ancestry DNA and all of those things. I've never done it before, but I would really love to. But anyway, this is how the Golden State Killer was caught. So the Golden State Killer wasn't always called the Golden State Killer. He was known as the East Area Rapist and the original Night Stalker. So the Golden State Killer name actually came from this lady called Michelle McNara. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce her name, but I did read her book. She has since passed. She actually passed away while writing her book. I will link the book down below. I did read it back a few months ago, and she like basically dedicated her life, the past I don't even know how many years, of trying to find the Golden State Killer, and unfortunately she passed away just a year before they caught him. But she's actually the one that gave him the name the Golden State Killer. He was before known as, like I said, the East Area Rapist and the original Night Stalker, depending on where in California we're talking about. So altogether, they think that he murdered at least 13 people. He committed more than 50 rapes and over 100 break-ins between 1974 and 1986. So within a 12-year span, he committed all of those crimes. It started in the Sacramento area of California, so northern part. Up there, he was called the East Area Rapist, and these rapes occurred between 1976 and 1979. They happened in Modesto, Contra Costa, and Stockton. And if you guys recognize Modesto, that's because that's where the Peterson case actually took place. But many of these rapes by the East Area Rapist were committed in these three parts of Northern California between that 3-year period. So he would like linger outside people's houses. He would kind of just like get to know the area of the house. He would prowl at night just to kind of like know the people's schedule before he broke in. A lot of times before he would actually like break in the house, he would like give the victims a phone call, just like random phone calls for like weeks leading up, and then he would end up like breaking in the house and stuff and just going through just stuff in the house, like turning the house upside down. I don't know what he actually took from the houses, it didn't really say, but he would just like go in and just break into the houses while people were not home. That's how it started. While people were not in their houses, he would get to know their schedule. He would break in when they weren't home. Well, this ended up changing once he got used to like breaking in the houses and everything, and he became a little bit more confident in that. He started breaking in the houses while people were home. So again, he would linger around the neighborhood. He would kind of know their schedule. A lot of times he would break in ahead of time to know like the layout of the house, how he could escape. He would just want to know every detail. That way when he did break in with the people home, he would be able to escape. So this is when the rapes actually started. Around 1975 is when he started with the rapes. Before that, he was just burglarizing homes and just like going through them and stuff. So in 1975 is when he actually like started raping women in their houses. So he would usually try to pick a middle-class home. There were always one-story homes in about the first or second house from a corner. That way he could easily escape from the neighborhood. He would also try to pick neighborhoods that had like a trail or like a bike path, something like that, where he could easily escape to. He sometimes would run back to his car because they found footprints, and sometimes he would take off on a bike because they had witnesses placing him on bikes riding off. Cops have actually chased him on his bike and stuff, but obviously there was no luck. So he either rode his bike or would run to his car and take off, depending on the type of neighborhood he was committing these crimes in. And like I said, he would call ahead of time a lot and just like leave these creepy messages to the victims, and then a few weeks later he would break in and rape the women. So when he started these rapes, this is like really crazy, but he would break in through the bedroom window and shine a flashlight in the couple's faces so they couldn't see him. He wore a mask and everything anyway, but just so like they didn't know what was going on, he would shine a flashlight in their faces. And then he would already have stuff in the house like to bind them up and everything. So he would like make the woman, like the wife, tie up the husband in bed. And then a lot of times what he would do was make the men lie face down on the bed and then put like stack glass plates and stuff on top of the men's back. That way if the husband moved, the glasses would all fall and break, and the East Area rapist would know that the husband was trying to get away and get loose, and he would tell them, if I hear like the plates moving or breaking, like I will shoot you guys. So he would do that to the husband, and he would take the wife usually into the living room, tie her up, bound her, gag her, everything so she couldn't scream, and that is where he would commit the rapes. He would do it with children home, he would do it with husbands home. It really didn't matter to him. Once he was confident enough, he would do it with literally anybody at the house. So you can tell throughout each rape and break-in, he was becoming more and more confident. He went from just burglarizing homes to breaking in with just women home to breaking in with their husbands and children home. So this was all up north in like the Sacramento area. One time when he was also raping someone, he was like yelling at her saying, "I hate you, Bonnie, like it's your fault, Bonnie, I hate you." But her name wasn't Bonnie, so they ended up like realizing that he must have someone in his life named Bonnie that he is so mad at that is making him commit these types of crimes. So fast forward to the end of 1979. So he starts striking down in Southern California. But at this time, they don't connect that it's the same person in Northern California and Southern California because they're not communicating. They're in total different counties and everything. So they just think that the East Area rapist has stopped, I guess, in 1979. And then in 1979 to 1986, these types of crimes start being committed down in Southern California. But like I said, back then, like there wasn't as much media coverage and the counties just were not communicating. So they totally didn't know that these cases were connected. And 1979, like I said, he started committing these crimes down in Southern California, and this is when he started murdering couples. So December 30th of 1979 was his first murder, and these murders would take place over the next like 6 to 7 years. There was a total of 13 murders, like I said. So again, he would continue the break-ins, the rapes, and now he was murdering. So he just kept getting more comfortable with what he was doing and would just keep taking it one step further. So the same type of thing happened down in Southern California that happened in Northern California, except for they called him the original Night Stalker down in Southern California. That was his name Down there, again, there were sightings of him and stuff, but he always had a mask on, so he was never caught. They did have DNA from the rape kits of the women, but it didn't match anybody in the database. Also, the only like evidence they had was his shoe size. They would see foot impressions like outside people's houses, like outside their windows, and like running to the trails and stuff that he would run away onto. So they really didn't know much at all about him. The cops had seen him before and they weren't able to catch him on his bike. And then there was this one incident. This drives me crazy, but there was this one incident where like they had the wrong description of him or something, and they stopped this guy on the street and questioned him, and you know, he didn't fit the description. And then later on the cop realized they had the wrong description, and the person they talked to was probably the Golden State Killer or the East Area Rapist, Original Night Stalker, whatever you want to call him. But that drives me crazy because like the cops talked to him, but they had the wrong description, and they totally could have gotten him, but like that was it. Like they didn't have the perfect description of him. I mean, they had some details, but not that many. His profile was a white male, around 6 feet, maybe a little bit shorter than that. He was a size 9.5 shoe from the shoe impressions they found. He was most likely in his early to mid 20s. He had light eyes and blondish brown color hair. He was type A blood, and he was a non-secretor. So non-secretor and type A blood together is not that common. I mean, non-secretors in general aren't that common, so knowing that he was a non-secretor and a type A blood gave them a big added advantage when they were like testing, like DNA testing and profiling people, but they never caught him. They had suspects and stuff, and through DNA, like they eliminated them because they were either secretors or they weren't type A blood, or they just didn't match with what, like where they were at that time and stuff like that. He also had knowledge of investigative methods, so he knew like what the cops would be looking for, and he was like really on top of it with what, like how they would be looking for him and how not to leave behind certain clues and stuff like that. They said that he was most likely well dressed, and he didn't stand out in these like middle to higher class like neighborhoods and stuff. He looked like he belonged and he fit in. They said he most likely had a criminal record as a teen, but that was not like public, so that's why he wasn't in the system or anything. They said that he had to have had a mean of income, that he was very neat and organized with just the way like he did the crimes. So in his life, he was probably a pretty organized person, and that he was very self-assured and confident. Like I said, he had to have been confident because he went from just breaking in to just targeting women, to targeting families, to murdering couples. So he was very confident in what he did, and confident each time that he didn't get caught, that he could get away with it. Like I said, he would make these like weird phone calls. Some of them were to the police and some of them were to the victims. So I have a few phone calls written down. To the cops, he would call and just say, I'm the East Area Rapist, and just like kind of brag that like, here I am and you can't find me. He would call and just say, you're never gonna catch me, and hang up. He called on Christmas and told them Merry Christmas. He was just like playing the cops at this point, like saying like, you know, just Merry Christmas to you, you're not going to find me. He called and said that he would be at Watt Avenue, and I don't know if he actually hit there or if he had already hit there, but he literally called in saying he was at Watt Avenue, and obviously they still didn't catch him. And then he called a victim and just kept saying, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna kill you, called her some bad words, and then hung up the phone before eventually breaking in and raping her. And then all the way in 2001. This was the last known phone call or any communication with the Golden State Killer. So this was years after he was done committing these crimes. He stopped in 1986 and this was in 2001. So he called in 2001 to a victim and just said, "Remember when we used to play?" and hung up. So I don't know if she knew from his voice or she knew because he identified himself that it was him, but that was the last known contact with the Golden State Killer. And it wasn't until 2001 that the two counties in Northern California and Southern California talked to each other and, connected the crimes and matched the DNA and found out that this wasn't two different people, this was one person. So now they're able to better profile him and put more stuff together and continue on with the investigation. DNA testing has gotten better in that time, and that's when everything was really connected. The Golden State Killer gained more and more popularity when Michelle wrote her book. She had a website. I will also link her website down below. Like I said, she passed away, but she had this crime website for years and she was just super into crime, and she went back to these places and where the crimes were committed and talked to the detectives and the cops and victims and witnesses and everything like that, and was just trying really hard to solve this crime now that DNA testing was better and everything. So that's when it started to really gain popularity. And then in 2015, June of 2015, the FBI released new sketches of the perpetrator and also put up a $50,000 reward. And that was that for that amount of time. Like I said, DNA testing just kept getting better, genealogy, all that stuff. So in January of 2018, so this is 3 years later after they released the sketches and everything, and this case was gaining popularity all over again. Detective Paul Holes uploaded the perpetrator's DNA. Like I said, they had DNA from rape kits from him. So they uploaded the DNA to, it says, a gen match site. So it's a genealogy site, and between 10 and 20 distant relatives came up with this match of DNA. Now, he didn't really know too much about genealogy, so he didn't know how to narrow it down to the actual perpetrator. So he got help from genealogist Barbara Ray Venter. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. You can look her up. She does a lot with genealogy. So she constructed a family tree and was able to identify two suspects. Again, the suspect that we're talking about does not secrete and is a type A blood. So they were able to rule out one person, and then they were left with this man named Joe DeAngelo that was literally in his 70s at this point. So before they went in to make any type of arrest or anything, they wanted to 100% be sure that this was their guy. So police just hung out around his house undercover and stuff, just kind of scoping it out. So the cops were just kind of scoping out the area, just seeing his every move, just kind of trying to see how he is, who he is. So then on April 18th, one of the police actually got some DNA lifted from a car handle from one of his vehicles. They wanted to make sure he wouldn't be catching them doing this. So that's why the cops kind of hung out so they could secretly do this. So they got DNA from the car handle of his vehicle, and they also went through his garbage can. It wasn't on his property. I don't think they're allowed to go through if it's on their property, so they waited till it was the garbage day and the garbage was out on the curb, and they just took bags of garbage from the garbage can on the curb and they went through it and found a tissue. So they tested both of the DNA and they matched the DNA profile to Joesph DeAngelo. I'll give you a little bit of backstory about Joesph DeAngelo. He was born on November 8th of 1945 in Bath, New York to James and Kathleen. I feel like so many serial killers and murderers were born in New York, and it always scares me because I'm like, I live in New York, thank God they moved away. Because there's been quite a few cases where like born in New York, but then they like move across the country. I'm like, thank God. But anyways, he had 2 sisters and 1 brother, and apparently when he was about 9 years old, he saw his one sister who is 7 years old being raped by 2 men in a warehouse, and this is what people think kind of triggered him to become the kind of person that he was, that it was so traumatic for him that he acted out and raped women when he got older. They ended up moving to Rancho Cordova, I think that's how you pronounce that, in California. He attended middle school and high school here. He ended up graduating with his GED, and then he enrolled in the US Navy in 1964. He was in the Navy for 22 months, so just about 2 years until 1966. He ended up going to Sierra College. He got his associate's degree in 1970. He got his associate's in police science. And then in 1970, he was engaged to his girlfriend, Bonnie. So this is where the I hate you, Bonnie came from in the rape. Obviously, that was a traumatic breakup for him, and this is what like really triggered him to start the rapes and being more violent and stuff. That's what people think. In 1971, he got his bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and then him and Bonnie ended up breaking up. And then in 1973 to 76, he worked as a police officer in the burglary unit. So he knew all about break-ins and what they look for and how to do it, because he was literally a cop for that unit. So he knew what was going on. He knew how to commit the perfect crime and the perfect break-in, because he was the one who was investigating other break-ins and stuff. 1976, they ended up promoting him to a sergeant. So he was like pretty up there in the police unit. And also in 1973, while he was working as a police officer, he ended up marrying his wife, Shannon. This is his wife that he was with until he was caught. They had kids together, they had grandkids together. They were together all the way up until he was caught. And then from 1990 to 2017, he was a truck mechanic, and he ended up retiring right before he ended up getting caught in April of 2018. So about a year and a half ago, he was finally caught. Unfortunately, because of the statutes of limitation expiring, they couldn't charge him for any of the rapes or burglaries. So they ended up charging him with 13 counts of murder and 13 counts of kidnapping. They didn't know if they were going to sentence him to life. Like I said, he was already in his 70s, but they didn't know if they would sentence him to life or to the death penalty. They said that the trial would cost millions of dollars and probably last for the next 10 years. And then in April of this year, so just a few months ago, the prosecutors announced that they would be going for the death penalty. But people sit on death row for super long time, so most likely he will die on death row instead of actually being killed. I know in my last case with Peterson, Scott was sentenced to death, and in a case like that, I always said I don't believe in the death penalty because there isn't enough evidence pointing to Scott. But in a case like this, where he murdered and raped, and he had the whole city, multiple cities in fear for months, for years, this is the kind of case where I think the death penalty fits. I could never choose death for somebody. I just couldn't do that. If I were on a jury, I would not be able to do that. I feel like I'm not the person who should determine when somebody dies, but this is like the type of case where I believe that it does fit. Like I said, he will probably die on death row from natural causes because he is in his 70s, but he is sentenced to death and he is in prison as of last year. I think it's really cool how they use genealogy and everything to find these people. I know that they're trying to use it for so many more cases. I've watched a lot of like videos and stuff on YouTube where they're using genealogy to help solve these murders and rapes and all these different things. So I think that's really cool, and I feel like with the help of genealogy we'll be able to catch so many people that haven't been caught for so long. So I'm really glad that in his lifetime before he died, he was able to be arrested and, you know, brought to justice. So I hope you guys enjoyed this second true crime video. I will definitely keep making more. I really love filming these videos. Again, if you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe. I'm almost at my goal. I have 97 subscribers as of right now, and I'm trying to get to 100. I just hit a year mark on this channel, so it would be great if you guys could get me to 100 subscribers. I would really appreciate it, and I will see you guys in my next video.